Isn't he Mexican?
Colombian.
He calls himself American.
What is this?
Anchor Baby.
And in this corner, it's the American Anchor Baby.
Daddy's home.
That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct? Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
No, he's an anchor baby in Canada.
Tell him we still rolling with Trump, too.
Anchor baby, the whole thing sounds horrific. You're just making it sound like immigrants are these horrific, greedy people.
Ustedes pueden aceptar mi negocio o aceptar las consecuencias. Plata o plomo.
So you would be considered white, in my opinion.
You the blackest one in this room.
I think so.
And what happened was his mama got pregnant on the other side of the border, and then a few hours before, just before it was time for him to pop out, she jumped across the border and let him fall on America's soil. So he became the anchor baby. You don't call him the anchor baby for nothing. Amazing.
We like this anchor baby, right?
What's up, everybody? Hello, welcome to my show. I'm the American Anchor Baby. Appreciate you all being here with me today. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Very nice. I see you in the chat, and it's nice to have you here. Make sure you follow, subscribe, do those things. Hit me up on Rumble, if you so choose, as well as Twitter and all that. Subscribe, follow, do the things. Because we're going to get into a flight tomorrow. We're going to take a flight, so make sure you're followed, so that you don't miss that. Where should we go? Any suggestions? Where should we fly out of and fly to? Make sure it's a nice long flight. 2.5 plus hours. But we're gonna get into some of this Canada wildfire stuff. I have a little thing on that. The skies are orange. But I saw the skies like that over when I went to, was it Modesto? Was it, I forget where, Fresno, Modesto? Pretty sure Modesto, here in California. There was wildfires here as well. And the skies, although far away from the fire, I mean, we could smell it. And the skies had an orange hue. And there was a general smokiness. So very similar. As well as other things, you know, there's stuff going on with the DOJ and some news and other things I want to get into, as well as your calls, 888-775-3773. But yeah, 16 states issuing air quality advisories. Very scary. Let me see if I can show you some stuff here. Yep. That's how the skies pretty much looked in Modesto. This is an early morning picture somewhere in Canada. But similar things are going on in New York. The fire and the air pollution has made it all the way to New York. And that is at the top of every news aggregate site, at least this morning. This has been the top thing. This smog stuff. Okay, maybe now it's Hunter Biden. Okay, I'm just looking now. Maybe it's Hunter Biden now. Whatever. Everybody's going after poor Hunter. They're going after poor Hunter. Oh yeah, see Drudge. It's on the top on the main page of Drudge, main page of others. Okay, so it's the story a little bit. It's the story for the CNN and Skim. Calling it air quality advisories. Okay. Hold on here. Officials say it could take days as the weather pattern changes. Today, air quality could plummet in parts of Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, as the smoke moves south. This health experts say sensitive groups like the elderly and those with asthma, should limit their outside exposure. Okay. EPA recommends digging up some of those N95 face masks. Yeah. Got a nice little excuse to bring back the masks. Well, no, it's not a mandate, but Some people here are using this as a big win for the masks. Credibility for the masks, saying N95s would help with this. Hey, it very well could. I mean, those things stop particles as small as what, like 30 nanometers or something like that? How big is the COVID one? I don't know. But yeah. But here's one thing I've come to learn about forests, forest fires, and all this. I've come to learn that people are pretty knowledgeable, especially people are in these areas where there's large amounts of wildlife and forests and natures of such, and where things are flammable. Okay, people in those areas, they're quite knowledgeable. Okay, about forests and about wildfires and how can they be prevented and the patterns they follow. Yeah, they follow patterns. You would think this fire, uncontrollable. How did it happen? Where did it come from? And where is it going to go? It's a force of nature. It's just a total mystery, but it's actually not so much of a mystery. Like I met this guy. He was a nature guide. I went on a trip. I went to Big Bear recently, and there was a guy who we went on some nature walk. Okay, it was like a guided nature walk. It was pretty dope. Okay, you saw these families line up and stuff, and we were like, okay, let's go. And sure, there might have been a part of me that was like, whoa, guided nature walk. I had obviously my judgmental heart didn't know to expect such a breadth of knowledge in a older white gentleman named David, I believe. And David, I trust with my life. Okay, in fact, it got a little controversial. It got a little controversial on the nature walk here when David picked up a rock of what he says was diatomaceous earth or diatomaceous rock, and he said it was millions and millions of years old. And I'm like, wow, spicy. I didn't think we were going to get controversial. Young Earth or old Earth, David? What are we talking here? Oh, I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen. I thought, sorry, let me not disturb your nature walk with David. But David knew a lot about the region and about weather and even about wildfires and fires and prevention. Like I said, it's not a mystery. I saw this bumper sticker on this car once, and it was, and I forget the exact wording, but it was something about, cleaning up like the brush or the forest to prevent like forest fires. And it was this bumper sticker I saw I saw it online, but it was in a region where there's wildfires and they're close to the forest and they're knowledgeable of these forests. I say that to illustrate just how common knowledge it was that it was a bumper sticker. And what was so common knowledge was the way to prevent a forest fire was cleaning up the brush, cleaning up the flammable dead stuff, and doing general maintenance and upkeep of those forests. Something that was reported, not widely reported, but it was reported in California that the lack of that maintenance and care was a big cause of the forest fires that were happening here. And if you remember, it was like 2018, I think 2019, I think it happened year after year because these things happen seasonally. Summer starts up, fires start up. It's actually a yearly occurrence, okay? So, like I said, that was something that was reported on here in California, but largely ignored and lost in the loud yelling of the green people saying it's caused by climate change. Climate change caused this. And due to that looming fear of climate change, things must be done now, which usually means money. So like I said, I've come to learn people are quite knowledgeable about these things. Kind of like, for example, this graph here. And this graph I'm going to show you is of the estimated cumulative area burned. Okay? It is a metric used by agencies, forest agencies, and this one is in particular in Canada. And what you're seeing here is, like I said, the estimated cumulative area burned. And the red line you see is 2023. This red line shows where we are just in June, where we are with estimated cumulative area burned. As you can see, 2023 in Canada is way ahead of the other years. As you can also see, the other gray lines, which denote the other previous years of wildfires and area burned, you see that they all follow a curve. They follow what they call a temporal pattern, okay? They start up at the beginning of summer, you know, kind of starting up in May. Then they ramp up throughout June, July, and they even out in the later months as it starts to cool down. And as you can see, the previous years, we see different all-time highs. 2020, you can see, is all the way at the bottom. And there are different numbers, there are different years showing that the estimated cumulative area burned in a given year changes. Okay, it hasn't even been following a rising trend, is what I'm trying to say here. It is, as you can see, 2020 and all the different years kind of stacking up. But as you can see, 2023 is way, way, way ahead, not even following this temporal curve, this temporal pattern as they call it, and already on track to beat any of the previous years in estimated cumulative area burned. But so I'm showing you this graph because, like I said, people are knowledgeable of these things. It's not a mystery. It's not a mystery, and things follow patterns, and you can graph things, and this particular graph is one used to, just essentially be able to graph exactly what's going on here, right? And the fact that it's not following this curve is ringing alarm bells in a couple of different police precincts and stuff in Canada, and different people in Canada are saying this and other occurrences like this are very suspect. Okay, because like I said, it's not so much of a mystery. We have data that has been graphed over time, and we can find out when things are out of the ordinary. Kind of like the election stuff. Okay, there's there's a lot of data that comes out of elections over the years. So you can understand why things like this would ring alarm bells. Okay? Just kind of making a point here. So let me just change my camera here. Okay, so yeah, like I said, there was even a summer forecast of a bad wildfire season due to a dry winter. So, and then there's this satellite footage, okay? There's this satellite footage that's being shared in relation to this story, okay? And this same footage I'm about to show you is footage that was used by CBS, by CTV, the Canadian news station, local news station there, and others, okay? I'm about to show you this right here. And you'll see this guy commenting on the footage here, and what the footage is going to show is a satellite image of Ontario, of like Quebec, where the fire started. And it's a satellite image, and you'll see smoke pillars start to pop up almost simultaneously in a very large area, okay? In a very large area, which this satellite image is showing, okay? So let me just show it to you here.
All of southeast Quebec just caught on fire, guys. All of it. Insane. Insane. Look at that. The whole thing. All at once. Today. And this is on top of Nova Scotia, New Jersey, and the entire western side of Canada burning.
So that's got a lot of people a little confused. and wondering how can a bunch of fires just start simultaneously like that in different areas. It seems unnatural, right? Nothing to see here, folks. Yeah. Will you look at that? Yeah. Okay. Because you'd have to have a pretty good explanation for a bunch of fires just starting up like in how we saw in that image. And if your explanation is, well, we have a way more carbon. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, what's the argument of the climate people? There's a lot more carbon. Look at all this carbon. Fires are just going to start. It's not a particularly hot summer. I mean, at least anecdotally, according to friends. But anyways, some may not be so conspiratorial, right? Because this is getting into the territory of, well, speculation and all that. And of course, a lot of things I'm saying here is my opinion. But some police departments in Canada have been reporting on arson and arson events, and particularly, what's the word I'm looking for here? Not dangerous, but, significant ones because of the amount of forest that's like, here's three of them. For one, there's British Columbia, Alberta, and Nova Scotia, okay? All reporting on some saying coordinated arson, trying to start wildfires, arsonists sought in wildfire, ripped through Nova Scotia, etc. Okay? But there was also this very interesting report. Very, very interesting report here. State of emergency, arson suspected in multiple Alberta wildfires. In fact, officials in Alberta are now saying that just under half, so like just under 50% of all the wildfires in Alberta, they have concluded are arson. And the other half, the other 52.84%, is under investigation as possible arsons, okay? Not even accidental campfire, stuff like that, okay? Full-on arson. Okay, so like I said, some aren't so conspiratorial, right? And I'm for sure not saying I know about arson with these latest wildfires here, because I don't, and nobody does. Nobody's shown any evidence. We don't know. But it doesn't change how strategically viable this sort of story is for a lot of different groups, including the U.S. government. They have become basically radical eco-fascists. And I'm talking about groups such as Extinction Rebellion. You've seen these people. They stop traffic. They destroy art. Okay? These people don't care about life and beauty and the ecology or whatever. These people hate life, and in their anger, they believe they're doing good by destroying the very thing they say is in danger, to say some kind of point or whatever. So while we may not know the causes, I mean, it's fine, but you have to admit the sensational media campaigns is their MO, is these eco people's MO. At least some of them. Not only that, Canada has gone all like full on green with the trying to stop any sort of oil stuff and the oil sands, pipelines over indigenous First Nations grounds or whatever. So they're all in with that ideology, and it is an ideology and political philosophy, I guess. You know what I'm saying? So they're all in. Eco-communists. I disavow all arson conspiracies. People wouldn't do that. Spontaneous combustion. Yeah. Amazing. But yeah, that's just kind of my just kind of looking at this story a little bit. Kind of my thoughts a little bit. My thoughts a little bit on this. You'll see the usual media going wild about climate change and all that. Is there more carbon good? Is there more carbon good for plants growing bigger, leafier greens? Right? Carbon's good. I say bring on the carbon. I say bring on the carbon back to the dinosaur times levels. Okay? Isn't that what people say about dinosaur times on the earth? However many millions of years ago when there were dinosaurs roaming the earth? They say, the scientists say that life was so big, could only grow to such a size because of the amount of carbon in the air. I say, let's get bigger, leafier greens. Let's make these crocodiles into big old dinosaurs. It'll be exciting. It'll be fun. Anyways, what are you all saying here? Yeah, if it's good enough for the dinosaurs, it's good enough for us. I didn't know you guys were all such scientists in the chat. Right on. Everybody a scientist. So, speaking of Canada, though. Speaking of Canada, the Canada youth, they're done. Or at least what LifeSite is calling the first ever, Canada's first ever LGBT Pride school walkout, and it signals hope for the future. Isn't that nice? Isn't that nice? We should have some hope for the future. We would have been happy if schools had a 10% absence rate, but when the numbers started coming in, we were blown away because the participation rate far surpassed anything we could have dreamed of. As you know, Canada's education system has become a cesspool of sexual propaganda and soul and body destroying ideology. This is the LifeSite article here. We're still a majority of elected school board trustees in most districts support the programming of sexual perversion into the next generation. And then they talk about someone they affectionately call a mama bear who was sick and tired of LGBT propaganda and started this National Pride Flag Walkout Day. Okay? A poster and webpage campaign was promoted, and it was held Thursday, June 1st, when most schools raised the gay pride flag. So here are the results. Depending on the area, absence rates were a staggering 30 to 75%. Is that for real? And depending on the area, you have to take it with a grain of salt, right? Depending on the area. It's like America. You take any liberal city, like LA. Yeah, super blue, super liberal, but then pretty much every county surrounding it is red, Republican, and so I wouldn't be surprised if Canada's very much the same. Northwood Public School in Windsor, Ontario, saw 600 out of its 800 students stay home. It sounds like an okay, pretty big school. Now, some of you Americans, I understand that sounds very small, but I actually went to the biggest high school in terms of population, in terms of students in Ontario, and we had 3,000. That's not that much compared to some of these American schools. So it sounds like it may have been actually quite successful if these numbers are true. Oakville, up to 30% of students in some schools stayed home in protest of the transgender homosexual pride flag. I wonder if it's like egged on by parents and they're just adopting the parents' outrage. But this stuff is brazen. It's like pride this, LGBT this, and you're evil. Anything besides that. You're an evil person if you go against it. So maybe it is organic. I wouldn't be surprised if some of these youngins are really done, and ready to walk out on Pride. How dare you? How dare you? Don't you know Pride is a sacrament in Canada now? At this point, they have Pride season. They go like a whole summer, 3 months of Pride. I'm pretty sure they started that too, and I'm seeing other countries adopt a Pride season because I'm hearing Pride summer. I'm hearing the season of Pride. I'm hearing Pride summer here in America. So I think it's that's what they're trying to do everywhere. Well, anyways, there's one teacher though. Here's an interesting culture clash, an interesting intersectionality, whatever I'm saying there, of different identities, culture, religion clash that happened in a Canada classroom. Speaking of Pride, there was a moment where a Canadian teacher lambasts a Muslim student for eschewing Pride, according to the National Post. In a particularly stark illustration of what appears to be a growing rift between Muslim communities and the Canadian public school system, an Edmonton teacher was allegedly caught on tape lambasting Muslim students for eschewing in-school Pride celebrations. Okay, and this teacher, it's so funny. It's like, this was too far. This was too far for the Canadian. This was much too far. It was basically, like the article says, a Muslim student who didn't want to take part in the LGBT Pride celebration stuff. And it was a recorded moment. It's no video, it's just the audio. But let's get into the clip here.
Well, I'll tell you, you were out to lunch. If you think it's acceptable to not show up because you think that there's some Pride activities going on at school, right? Oh, that's fine. Because I'm going to show my opinion by hanging out at the mall. But meanwhile, all of those kids who are, involved in, say, the Gay Street Alliance or whatever, I don't even know if we have that anymore in our school, they're here when we did Ramadan for Lion Time, and they're showing respect in the class for your religion, right, for your beliefs. It goes two ways. If you want to be respected for who you are, if you don't want to suffer prejudice for your religion, your color of skin, your whatever, then you better give it back to people who are different from you. That's how it works. It's an exchange. And it isn't like that in all countries. As I told you, in Uganda, literally, if they think you're gay, they will execute you. If you believe that kind of thing, then you don't belong here. Because that is not what Canada believes. We believe in freedom. We believe that
that's what you believe in.
Marry whomever they want. That is in the law.
It is.
If you don't think that should be the law, you can't be Canadian.
Get out.
You belong here, and I mean it. I really mean it. And it's not a joke, Mansour.
Doxed.
Back and forth. You
I had a friend named Mansour.
It just makes me angry.
Ooh.
Sorry, I'm a little...
Little outbursts, little Purklen, little Purklen racially conscious outburst there, lady. That is it's interesting on multiple levels. Maybe you're not aware of all of them, but you heard her in the clip saying it's two ways, this respect of cultures and respect of each other and people. It's a two-way street. If you want to see all the kids, they showed up to school when it was Ramadan, and they did all their little Muslim stuff, and and I remember school in Canada when Ramadan came around, or other things. It was that day was theirs, with decorations and such. I'm trying to remember if Christmas was as big. Yeah, the schools were decorated, and we had a whole Christmas thing too. I went to Catholic school in Canada. It's very weird. Catholic school has basically been been taken over by the government. It is now just public school with a Catholic school name. No one has to do anything Catholic, and I remember all my peers and classmates. They had turbans, and I remember the Sikhs. They would have that little golden dagger. They have this golden dagger. You got to understand. They have these like the Catholics have the sacraments. You know what I'm saying? Like the Catholics have the sacraments, and you get confirmed and first communion and baptized and all that. Maybe this is a bad comparison, but the Sikhs have like, as they age and progress in their, and they become a level 40 Sikh, a level 43 Sikh, they level up and they receive, they receive different things, okay? One of them is the ceremonial golden little dagger that you keep like in this special like sash thing, okay? And the really like, the ones who are really into it, they did it all. They did the golden thing. They wore the turban. They wore it all. So those were my Catholic school classmates. Okay. But you heard her saying kids involved. They were involved in Ramadan. Why don't you show respect and come here when it's Pride? Okay. And if you can't do that, then you can't be Canadian. Whoa. I never heard a Canadian talk like that. You can't be Canadian. What? It's funny that this was too far for this lady, not celebrating Pride. When your country's been changed over the past 100 years, just like America, in ways many people my age, Canadians today, have no idea just how much and where it came from, because its origins are not unlike America. They just went a different way. They went a different path. They didn't want to revolt against the English. They had a more quiet revolution, and were like, they'll leave us alone eventually, right? And it did. They pretty much did. Even though on all documents there is no property rights. All Canadians' land is actually owned by the king. Now, some say there are legal protections for those Canadians. Should the king all one day willy-nilly show up in Canada and say, that's mine? But really, I've read it myself. I don't know if that's it's flimsy. But I mean, property rights are flimsy in America as well, right? Who's ever tried to stop paying their property tax? But anyways, yeah, your country's been changed a lot more than this Pride stuff. This Pride stuff, lady, I'm speaking to this lady now. This whole Pride stuff is part of the newly injected culture in Canada. It's not the original culture. It's not the Christian Catholic origins. So it's just a weird clash of cultures and different intersectionalities going on here. And here's the thing, maybe the student doesn't care about mutual respect. Okay? Like she's assuming that if you want people to care about you and your essentially identity or culture or whatever, then you got to show it to them. It's like, maybe they don't want that. Maybe you shouldn't want that. Like, because you're basically admitting, like, how weak do you have to be that you would need someone's mutual respect of you and where you come from and stuff? How weak do you have to be? And then she says it's an exchange. So a compromise. I wonder what country, tell me which countries in the world compromise like that. And I'm sure you could point to a few, but they're all white, Western, originally Christian. So what's going on here? And she says, in this country, we believe in freedom. The freedom to marry whoever you want. Yeah, that's not what they believe where they're from. And so now all of a sudden you're going to start asking that those that come here assimilate. All of a sudden? You didn't care about that before. Yes. Do they gain XP from killing Christians? I don't know. You'll have to read their book. I don't know, Eric. I don't think so, though. Exactly. Amazing. So that's just a little interesting thing I was thinking about. with the Canadians over there. Yeah, meaningless, empty platitudes. So true, Doom Jesus. Yep. Amazing. So, let me move on here because speaking of this, LGBT, sexual immorality, and stuff like this. Oh, Mr. Dave in the chat says, I spent time in Canada early 90s. People were religious, conservative, happy. I don't know what happened. My tentative plan B 15 years ago was to go back if USA got too wacky. Now they're full on. Yeah, man, it's crazy. I saw tents in Toronto where I didn't see tents before. I've seen homeless people, but not tents. It's just, Toronto's a really clean and nice city. I imagine Toronto being so clean and it feels like a hot spot in terms of businesses opening up, artists shouting it out and stuff like that. It's a big city. I mean, it has the same population as LA proper, the city of LA. I imagine all cities start off like Toronto. Not that Toronto's that young of a city, but it's much younger than a lot of the American cities that are, where we're seeing massive homeless problems, crime issues, and just a general dirty, just not maintained dirtiness, trash everywhere. I imagine Toronto will end up like that and is only clean because of its youth. It just hasn't progressed to that level just quite yet, considering the leadership in place. Its only eventual logical conclusion is cities like we see in America. Okay. So, speaking of all this, though, yesterday I brought up this thing on Instagram, pedogram as they're calling it. I've noticed any show where I've mentioned this or mentioned, maybe it's the words, but that episode gets demonetized. And I made this whole, I made the Anchor Baby intro so I can use original music so that I can monetize these episodes. But then I go on and I start talking like crazy. I start saying pedophile this, and there I go now, and this episode now just got demonetized. I go on, I start talking crazy and go and get the episode demonetized. But I'm talking about that a little bit once more, bringing it back up just a little bit here. I covered yesterday morning the Wall Street Journal article uncovering the Pizzagate pedophile network on Instagram. In a surprising and unexpected development, Wall Street Journal gave credibility to Pizzagate. For those who may not be familiar, the whole Pizzagate theory, I'm just reading this Revolver article here, is a theory that claims elites use coded pizza references to openly discuss their hidden pedophile ring. Okay. But I was interested in bringing this back up because I realized the basis of sexual morality in America has changed. It's always been like this for me growing up, although I didn't quite know it. But I knew it without the word. But the basis, hey, take care. The basis of, they're going to disconnect me. But the basis of sexual morality of that in America is this thing called consent, okay? That is the moral framework for that in America. Because, I used to think, well, no, people they're just immoral or they just throw morality out the window. And although someone may speak that way and say, well, that doesn't exist, I don't believe in God, I don't believe in a objective morality, people operate in that way regardless of what they say. They they have to either justify or deny the things they do and think and say. You am I making sense here? You know, they need. That's how they live. That's how they can operate. They live and they operate out of belief, and their beliefs are tied with their personal morality, which already has a interesting connotation. But yeah, people have to justify or not the things they do and say, including all this. And it's varied. Some are way more out of control than others, but that is what makes, like I said, people operate with morality whether they may deny it or not. Okay? They need to fit things in a moral framework. And people have denied and left the Christian godly framework, but they still had to replace it with something. And the framework is consent. Okay, as long as both parties consent, as long as it's something you want to do, as long as it makes you feel good and the person you're doing, if it's by yourself, that's one thing. If you're doing it with someone, as long as you both want it and agree and say yes and consent, then that makes that sex moral and morally justified in that framework. It's in stark opposition, it's in stark contrast to the framework, the moral framework of marriage. Sexual morality being, the basis of it being marriage. God, you know? When you see it this way, you see that things like pedophilia, probably too late to save this episode, pedophilia, when you see it in that framework of consent and that being the litmus test of morality when it comes in context with, you know, having sex or whatever, you see that things, dirty things such as the Instagram story and even other things become morally justified in that framework. Am I making sense here? That becomes the basis of morality, as opposed to sex being, the purpose of sex being creating children. Creating children. Okay? Once you see it differently, you find it hard to see sex as anything like when you see it that way, having sex for anything besides that reason is using someone. Okay, I'm not saying anything new here, but I mean, it's hard to justify anything besides that as just using someone. And atheists, people who believe in consent, people who believe that is the basis of morality, they say they find that completely fine. Using someone to feel good. Those things are totally fine and justified in that framework. And in fact, promoted because feeling good is a way of bonding with someone. And the bond you share with someone is all feelings as well. It's just chemicals. So, just a little thing on that. Just a little thought I had about that whole thing afterwards, after the fact. Mel Gibson making a documentary on child sex trafficking. What the? I just saw this on Newsweek. But, yeah, we'll see. Some people say Mel Gibson's pretty based. Hey, thanks, Big Mama Obama, over there on Rumble. Says Turdo and his minions don't believe in freedom. Is that a cute name for Trudeau? Thanks, Big Mama Obama, over there on Rumble. You can follow me or watch the show over there on Rumble. Rumble.com/American Anchor Baby. You gonna say PDF in the chat? How can a child consent? Jabrail says. That's the thing. Here's the thing about that. This is what I'm saying about this. Someone just asked in the chat, how can a child consent? Well, children, they're essentially subject to adults. Okay, adults, and this is not a secret. Like, you guys know what I'm saying here. they have a way more breadth of, they've lived way longer. So it's like Satan. Satan is a very old spirit. That's why he's very cunning and wise in that sense. Okay, that's why you don't want to play with Satan and say, well, I'll just mess with evil a little bit. I'll just do a sin a little bit, because he's smarter than you. He's gonna outsmart you. Stop playing with it. Anyways, just like someone who's lived for a long time, like a evil spirit, an adult has a dominion over a child. Okay, and through there's a word for this already. They call it grooming, but through suggestion and degeneration, and the fact that more, people are just degenerate more. That's opened up. It's opened up the pathway a little bit easier to weird child stuff. Just straight up. That's just the truth. So is that a possible scenario where a child is consenting? Absolutely. And it would be wrong. And it would be wrong because the adults manipulated the person and all that. But the child consented. The child consented. And if you following what I've been saying about consent and that being the litmus test of sexual morality in the country today, well, now you see what I'm saying. Can you share your Rumble video link in YouTube chat? Yeah. Thanks, Hake. It's in the chat right now if you want to join up there on Rumble. Thank you, David C. with the first class super chat says, you hear the UN trying to normalize pedophilia? Is that true? Thank you, David C., for your super chat and your support. I have to shout out 𝒏𝒄𝒌𝒔𝒕𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒎. I have to shout you out, man. 𝒏𝒄𝒌𝒔𝒕𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒎, if you're in the chat now or if you catch this later, a faithful viewer, which is interesting to even have. The heck am I even talking about? But I do appreciate it, and we keep going. 𝒏𝒄𝒌𝒔𝒕𝒓𝒆𝒂𝒍𝒔, thanks for your support. We're going to keep it up. We got a flight tomorrow. Make sure you join in for that. Someone said we should fly to Alaska or Antarctica. We'll just fly right over that thing, right? We'll do an Antarctic flight over it, sightseeing. Right on. Okay. What else do I have for all of you today? Let me see here. That's pretty much all the prepared. Hey, thank you, Breathable Air Technology. Ice wall. Whatever. Ice wall flight? Let's do ice wall flight tomorrow. Oh, is that why? Hey, well, thanks for the info. I'll look into that. Okay. Guys, that's like all the show I had prepared for you guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. We'll leave some of this fun stuff and funny things I got for tomorrow for the flight. It'll be nice. It'll be a good old Nick stream. It'll be fun. And so I'll leave some of these topics I've been wanting to get into. They're totally more of a Nick stream topic anyways. More relaxed. Oh, the flight gonna get shot down. Right on. No problem, Lord Bibby. Air Marshal, Lord Bibby. No problem. If we have other air marshals, should we have any unruly passengers, right? They're going to say we're a UFO. All right. I mean, what else can I do here? That's the show. That's all I had prepared for you guys. What I got together. We'll get back tomorrow for a Nick stream, Ankle Baby Airlines flight. Make sure you don't miss it. I do appreciate you being here with me today. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Okay. Thanks, Hake. I'll look into that. More high-speed landings. Ivana Spencer says, I'm a pack of lunch because yo flight attendant heifers, no offense. Lord. Right on, y'all. Well, I do appreciate you being with me today. Take care. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday. Catch you guys tomorrow. As always, peace.
Isn't he Mexican?
Colombian.
He calls himself American.
What is this?
Anchor baby.
And in this corner, it's the American Anchor Baby.
Daddy's home.
That's an offensive term. People find that hurtful.
You mean it's not politically correct? Excuse me. I'll use the word anchor baby.
You know, he's an anchor baby in Canada.
Tell him we still rolling with Trump, too.
Anchor baby, the whole thing sounds horrific. You're just making it sound like immigrants are these horrific, greedy people.
Ustedes pueden aceptar mi negocio o aceptar las consecuencias.